At our divorce hearing, my ex mocked my ring. He had no idea who I was. My ex mocked my cheap wedding ring in front of everyone, calling me pathetic. He had no idea it was a $500,000 heirloom. I was the owner of the jewelry brand he bragged about and his contract was already cancelled. The spoon hit the bowl so hard the sauce splashed onto the linen, and everyone went quiet at once, the TV, the chatter, even the radiator seemed to stop breathing. My father blinked at the red dot spreading like a target. My mother reached for a damp cloth, missed, and grabbed one of her old dish towels instead. I kept my hand where it was, thumb pressed against the cool circle of my ring, and tried not to flinch at the sound of Ethan laughing. 500,000 followers, he said, grinning toward my cousin like we were a studio audience, and she still wears that cheap ring. Can you believe it? My mother's apartment always smelled like garlic and Sunday, like tomatoes that had been convinced to give up every last secret on a low simmer. The Yankees were losing softly in the living room. The plastic cover under the lace tablecloth crackled when anyone shifted in their chair. It should have felt familiar, easy, a childhood blanket pulled up to the chin. Instead, my chest buzzed like I'd swallowed a bee. Eat while it's hot, my mother said, because she could fill any silence with a spoon and a command. Ethan dug his fork in, then pointed it at my hand. Seriously, babe, show them. You'd think she'd upgrade, right? All those brand deals? I slid my hand off the table. The ring caught a slice of kitchen light and gave a quick, private blink. Thin band, square stone set low, the opposite of flashy. I'd never liked broadcasting. Enough, my father said, not looking up. He made the sign of the cross with his fork and went back to his pasta. Ethan chuckled, soaking it in. He always loved a crowd, even if the crowd was 3 family members and a neighbor who'd stopped by with bread and stayed for the drama. Look, I'm kidding, he added, palms up. It's just, people notice. People? My mother asked, loading his plate again without waiting for the answer, because in her house no one could win an argument with a second helping. Buyers, Ethan said, shrugging. Clients. They see you online, they expect a certain standard. Standard, I repeated. The word tasted like tin. He leaned back until the chair complained. I mean, come on. You're always preaching authenticity, but you can't show up to a pitch looking like you got your ring out of a vending machine. My cousin Nina reached for the salt and then didn't. She was 19, a law student who spent weekends hunched over casebooks at the corner of the same table. Today she watched us the way she watched her mock trials, waiting for a precedent to drop. You're late, I said to Ethan, quietly. He glanced at his watch. Not the one I'd given him. A new one, black ceramic bezel, the kind men buy when they want to be seen checking the time. Traffic on the BQE, he said, and took a loud bite. My father cleared his throat. Traffic didn't put that smell on you. Ethan laughed. It's cologne, Sal. Relax. The radiator hissed. The sauce bubbled. I could feel the ring against my skin, a small steady weight with a mouth of cold. When we moved in together, Ethan used to say he loved that I didn't care about labels. I believed him for years. I believed him about a lot of things. Anyway, he went on, mouth full, if you want to project success, maybe don't wear the ring you got from, what, a street fair? My mother's eyes snapped to mine. It was a tiny movement, but I felt it like a hand on the back of my neck. Are you okay? Do I need to say something? Do you want me to say something? I set my fork down, very deliberately, so it wouldn't clatter. I like my ring. Sure, he said, sing-song, and then he mimed holding up a phone to the imaginary followers hovering above the table. Hey guys, Thanks for supporting the brand. Use code CHEAPRING4. My father's spoon tapped the bowl again, once, twice, like a gavel. Enough. Ethan gave him an innocent look. Jokes, Sal. We're all family. The word family did something to my mother's mouth. It flattened and pressed colorless, then recovered as she reached to refill my glass. We eat, she said to me in a tone that meant we breathe. We keep our dignity. I stood. The chair legs scraped. I'll be right back, I said, and went down the short hall to my old bedroom. The bedspread was still yellow. The dresser still had stickers from when I was 12 and convinced I'd be a ballerina. The window rattled each time the 7 train announced itself in the distance. I opened the drawer where I'd placed the folder earlier that day, just in case I needed it and also hoping I wouldn't. My hands were sweating. Paper makes a particular sound when you pick it up with damp fingers, like fabric, but sharper. When I came back to the table, Ethan was telling Nina about a podcast he'd been on, some host who loved his take on grit. He said grit the way some people say God. What's that? My father asked, nodding at the folder. Something for after dinner, my mother said quickly. We don't ruin Sunday with business. Business already ruined Sunday, I said, taking my seat. My voice was calm. I think that scared me more than if I'd shouted. Ethan smirked. Babe, if this is about the card, I told you, my sister's company is on the verge. We'll get it all back and then some. The card? Nina said. The joint card, I said. Ethan rolled his eyes. Here we go. I opened the folder and slid the first page to the center of the table. It was a bank statement. You could see the line items the way you can see an engine if you don't know cars. You don't understand what everything does, but you know it could run you over. The amounts were tidy. The dates were tidy. The descriptions were domestic enough to pass at a glance. Marketing reimbursements. My mother said, the non-committal sound of someone looking for an exit. $42,000, I said. In 11 weeks. Nina breathed in. My father leaned forward, eyes narrowing like he was trying to remember if he'd ever taught me something I hadn't learned. Ethan's smile thinned. It's an investment. In Livia Ventures? I asked, and kept my voice soft. Soft forces people to strain to hear you. Straining makes them listen. My sister's starting a wellness app, he said, palms up again, always on stage. We talked about this. Family takes care of family. I didn't talk, I said. You talked. And then you moved money. He laughed, brittle. It's our money. My father said, no, it's not. Ethan turned to him. With respect. Respect, my father echoed, like he was trying the flavor of it. Don't do this here, my mother whispered. Please. I slid another page out. The highlighter lines glowed under the kitchen light. I had color-coded each week because color helps when your heart is sprinting. You sign my name on this transfer, I said. And this one. And this one. Ethan didn't look. He held his fork like he might throw it. You're being dramatic. Then look, I said. Nina reached before he could, and my mother, God bless her, didn't stop her. Nina read fast, lips moving. These are ACH authorizations, she said, glancing up. She's not being dramatic. Ethan snatched the page from her and stared at the signature. He'd practiced. He'd always been good at tracing. In middle school he'd copied his hall pass 3 times and bragged about the hack for months. He'd told me that story the night we met, proud of his ingenuity. I'd laughed then. Our bodies remember what we find charming long after our brains wish they didn't. He pushed the paper back with 2 fingers. You told me to do what was necessary. I told you to ask, I said. You don't get it. Livia's on the cusp of a seed round. If she closes, we're in early. That's equity. That's my mother's rent if it doesn't close, I said. That's payroll. That's the invoice I promised I'd pay by Friday because I keep my word. Always the martyr, he said. Maybe if you spent less time playing the humble queen online and more time learning how real growth works. My father's spoon clanged again. He was shaking. I hadn't seen his hands shake since the day I told him I was moving out at 22. Answer the question, he said to Ethan. Yes or no. Did you sign her name? Ethan laughed, but it came out wrong. We're married. That is not an answer, Nina said, so gentle it cut. Ethan set his fork down. You know what? She's not perfect either. Ask her about that cheap ring. Ask her why she's so defensive. Maybe she's not as flush as she pretends. Maybe that's the problem. My mother's eyes flicked to the ring again. I felt its weight like a promise and a warning. I slid it off and set it on a saucer, because I wanted it to have a place that wasn't my body. The platinum looked dull under the yellow light, like a secret choosing its moment. You want to talk about cheap? I asked, and flipped to the last page. Here's cheap, pretending you're entitled to anything you can reach. He smirked. Is that your big speech? No, I said. This is. I drew out the page with the transfer that had made my stomach flip when I found it at 2 in the morning, sitting on my floor with the laptop humming against my knees. The handwriting wasn't mine. The letters bent differently. The R had a pregnant belly, mine didn't. The A leaned like it was tired of standing. It was the forgery you make when you're sure no one you love will look closely. Ethan reached, annoyed, casual. He laughed again, like he always did before a lie. And then he saw the signatures. The laugh died in his throat so fast it left a shape in the air, like steam where the kettle just was. He held the paper up to the light as if the fluorescent bulb over my mother's stove could absolve him. The kitchen went so quiet I could hear the building settling, the soft tick of pipes in the wall, the radiator sighing like an old man. That's not he started, then clamped his mouth shut. You're what? My father asked. His voice had gravel in it. Ethan flicked his eyes at me, at the page, back to me. His jaw worked. He'd always had a tell, a muscle at his temple that jumped when he lied. Tonight it was drumming. My mother pressed her palm over the sauce stain on the linen as if she could push the red back into the fabric. There's still salad, she said, because she didn't know what else to do. Sit, my father told Ethan, like you'd tell a dog who'd just decided to bolt. Ethan sat. I slid my phone across the plastic-covered table toward Nina. Call, I said. She hesitated. Who? Start with the bank, I said. Then we'll make a list. Nina dialed with quick, competent fingers. The sound of the call menu, press 1, press 2, your call is important, felt obscene in the middle of our little courtroom. My mother got up to open the window a little more, the night air smelled like rain and cold metal. The 7 lines sighed somewhere far off. Hi, Nina said finally, all sugar and precision. We need to report unauthorized transfers on a joint checking. Yes, I can verify. Last name, Morales. Yes, I'm authorized. She wasn't, not technically, but the way she stacked her facts made people say yes. Ethan set the paper down and pushed it with 2 fingers, like it might burn him. This is insane, he said. You're making a federal case out of. Don't say federal case, Nina said, cupping the phone against her shoulder while she took down a reference number. People get nervous. I'm not nervous, Ethan said. His foot jiggled under the table, rattling the salt shaker. Freeze the card, I told Nina. And the overdraft line. I'll go to the branch in the morning. You can do that tonight, Ethan snapped. Cripple everything. Make your employees panic. That'll help. I'll call payroll, I said evenly. They'll hear it from me, not a bounced check. He laughed, but softer now. Queen of optics. Nina covered the phone and looked at me. They've flagged the account. You'll need to come in with ID to sign the affidavit. They're emailing the forms. Thank you, I said. Ethan reached for the bread, then put it back. We can work this out, he said, voice suddenly reasonable. It was the voice he used on buyers who were about to walk. I'll replace the funds when Livia's round hits. It's just timing. My father cocked his head. What's a round? Like drinks you'll owe me for the rest of your life? The first investment, Nina said. From venture people. Good for them, my mother muttered, wiping the same clean spot on the table in small furious circles. Let them invest in their own dinners. I wanted to say something measured, something that would land like a gavel and end the scene neatly. Instead, my throat went dry. I wanted to drink water and couldn't swallow. I pressed the cool circle of my ring on the saucer until the cold tunneled into my fingertip. Bring me the other pages, my father said. His hands were steady now. This was what he understood, paper. Numbers and lines. Physical proof. I flipped more statements over. Dates. Amounts. Memo lines that looked like they belonged to groceries and shipping and new display cases. Lies laid out in a font we all pretended was neutral. Ethan stared at the ceiling, like there was an exit sign up there only he could read. We're not children, he said. We don't need a family tribunal. Then stop acting like a thief, my father said. Ethan's smile showed teeth. If I wanted to be a thief, Sal, I wouldn't leave a paper trail. Maybe you didn't think anyone would look, I said. He snorted. I think you're enjoying this. Attention looks good on you. My mother's chair scraped. Get out, she told him, voice shaking. You come into my home and make jokes while you sign my daughter's name? Out. Ethan's head snapped to me instead. She doesn't want me to go, he said, reading me the way he always had, that little talent that could feel like love until it felt like control. She wants to perform. I stood so fast my knee banged the table. Glass rattled. In the living room, the TV commentator said something about a 2-run shot and then the volume dropped again. This isn't performance, I said. This is me making sure people get paid on Friday. People always get paid, he said. By who? I said. The muscle in his temple jumped. He shifted his chair back, bravado returning like heat on a dimmer. By the company that owes me, for starters. Nina's eyebrows went up. Owes you? He flicked imaginary lint off his shirt. Brand partnerships I landed. My IP. The content I wrote. You know that thing you posted? The 10 ways to. You were a contractor, I said. 1099. You submitted invoices. I paid them. He waved a hand. Invoices are a formality. Like signatures? Nina said. He ignored her. We built that brand together. You think you can just cut me out? He made a scissor motion that made my stomach tilt. I felt the line I'd been balancing on tilt with it. The urge to scream rose like static. I sat back down instead and leveled my breathing the way I do before a big pitch: count in, hold, count out. Okay, I said. Here's what's going to happen tonight. Nina, we finish this call. We get the affidavits. I changed the passwords on everything: Stripe, QuickBooks, email, shipping accounts, warehouse door. Daddy, tomorrow morning I go to the branch at opening and sign. Mommy, you don't have to fix this with food. I took the dish towel from her hands and folded it. Ethan, you will not come near my office this week. He smiled like he'd already walked into the building, like I was adorable. You can't stop me. I can, I said softly. It's called a lock. My phone buzzed. An email slid across the screen: bank fraud affidavit, action required. Immediately after, another: password change requested for company mail. A third dinged so close to the second it sounded like one long alarm: new login to cloud drive from unknown device. The room tilted. I tapped the third notification and my screen filled with an IP address I didn't recognize. Ethan watched my face like a mirror. My mother's hand found my elbow. What? I breathed through my nose, slow. Someone's trying to get into our files. Not me, Ethan said too fast. Nina leaned over. Click deny, then sign out of all devices. Do it now. I did. My thumb shook against the glass. A progress wheel spun, spun, spun. I could feel the heat of my own pulse in my ears. When it finished, another alert popped up. Password changed successfully. Ethan laughed. See? You got it. You don't get points for not stealing while we're watching, Nina said. My father pushed back from the table hard enough to make the plastic squeal. He stood, palms flat. You will bring back every dollar, he said to Ethan. And then you will bring your mother here and tell her what you did. Ethan's expression flickered. For a second I saw the kid from Jackson Heights who took the bus to the beach and came back sunburned and drunk on salt water. Then his jaw set again. I took care of her when you didn't, he said to me. You know that. I brought in clients. I taught you how to sell. I sold before you, I said. I'll sell after. He smirked. To who? They're loyal to me. Wait till you see who I'm meeting this week. Nina's eyes cut to mine. We should get ahead of that, she murmured. Send out polite notices. Lock down any rate sheets. Update NDA language. Tomorrow, I said. My voice surprised me with how steady it was. Tonight I need to sleep for an hour and then write a timeline. My mother stared at me. Sleep here, she said, already pulling the sheets from the hall closet, the motion practiced, muscle memory from the years before I learned to build a life. Ethan stood. I'm not staying where I'm not wanted, he announced, as if this were his decision. He took 2 steps toward the door, then pivoted back to the table and put both hands on the back of his chair. The veins on his hands stood out like cables. You think a ring makes you special? He asked, almost tender. You think that little audience will save you? I looked at the saucer. The ring lay there like a coin at the bottom of a fountain. You could make a wish if you wanted to believe in that sort of thing. No, I said. I think paperwork will. He rolled his eyes and stalked out. The door banged. The building breathed again. The radiator hissed like a kettle back on. My father exhaled slowly, shoulders dropping. My mother finally released the dish towel. Nina ended the call and texted me a list that appeared as a stack of blue bubbles, fraud forms. Credit report. Password manager. Two-factor on everything. Draft email to staff. Draft message to vendors. Timeline, dates, amounts. Evidence. You okay? She asked, soft. I don't know yet, I said, and took the ring off the saucer. It was cool as a mouth of winter. I didn't put it back on. I held it in my palm until the cold bit me enough to feel awake. Can you stay and help me with the timeline? Nina nodded. We'll start with the first transfer and work forward. Work backward, too, I said. In case the first one wasn't the first. My phone buzzed again. A new email previewed on the screen, a subject line that made my stomach lurch, request for proposal, urgent meeting before Friday. From a competitor I knew by their smell, lacquered cases and cheap champagne. I tapped the message open. The first line said, "We heard you're making changes. Can we talk about your wholesale rates?" It was addressed to both me and to him. By morning the lock refused his key with a clean, satisfying click, and I stood in the hallway holding my breath like I'd just pulled a fire alarm. The corridor smelled like dust and cheap cleaner, somewhere a shop vac whined, the freight elevator thumped a floor below. I tested the deadbolt again, turn, stop, turn, and only when the door stayed loyal did my lungs move. Inside, the studio felt like a muscle I could finally unclench. Concrete floor cool under my boots. Racks of velvet trays lined up like soldiers. The ultrasonic cleaner on the back bench hummed a steady note, water trembling in its steel belly. I flipped on the task lights. Being sharpened metal edges brought every scratch in the hammered rings to the surface, threw a halo off the loop hanging from its hook. "Morning, boss," Maya called from behind a tower of shipping boxes. Her voice was coffee and gravel. "I got here early. Leo's torch won't light, he thinks it's the regulator. Anita is on hold with UPS. And there's a DM you'll want to see." "Good morning," I said, which sounded absurd in a room braced to sprint. I set my bag down and felt for the ring in my pocket like a worry stone. Cold bit the pad of my thumb. "Show me." Maya angled her laptop. On the screen, a screenshot glared, an industry gossip account with a neon logo, all teeth. A post, a man's silhouette in a glassy booth, captioned, "Rumor is the real brain behind a certain minimalist brand is moving on, wife clings to cheap symbols, yikes, watch for a new drop next week." Tag, flame emoji. "That picture," I said. "Is that our booth?" "Can't tell," Maya said, jaw tight. "Could be anywhere with glass and bad lighting." My jaw found a tension knot and bit down. "Okay. We respond by doing the work right in front of us. You handle operations." "I'll handle him." "Already on it," she said, and then softer, "You okay?" I put the ring on the workbench. The metal looked sleepy under the fluorescence. I held it with tweezers and lowered it into the ultrasonic bath. The water shivered, lemon-scented detergent lifted a thin mist. Tiny bubbles frothed around the stone, peeling away lotion and kitchen oil and whatever else clung that wasn't mine. For 30 seconds I just listened to the machine's thrum and let that be a heartbeat I could keep. When the cycle stopped, I lifted the ring onto a lint-free cloth and blotted it like a bruise. The facets woke up, step after step catching the light, quiet fireworks no one could turn off. I raised the loop and lined up my eye. There it was, inside the shank, the tiniest signature engraved by a hand I never met, my great-grandfather's hallmark like a whisper. Proof with a pulse. "Boss?" Leo's head popped out from the polishing room. He had compound streaked across his cheek like war paint. "I swapped the tank." Torch is lit. We can cast at 9 if Anita gets the UPS guy to stop pretending he can't find the loading dock. Good, I said. We shipped the Dallas order first. No delays. He saluted with the torch and vanished. My phone buzzed. A number I recognized from last year's appraisal. I clicked. Hey, it's me. Your timing, the appraiser said, his voice all tweed and microscope light, impeccable. I'm between clients. You still have the piece? I do. He cleared his throat the way people do when they're about to tell you something you already know, to make it official. Ass share cut. 4 and a hair carats. F color, VS1. Old table, beautiful step. Platinum shank with a hand-cut, pre-standard hallmark. Appraised at $500 last November. You want me to recertify? I might. My mouth was suddenly dry. I glanced toward the glass office where my name sat on the door in vinyl I'd ordered the day the lease was approved, a day I'd cried in a supply closet because I was too tired to find a bathroom. I need a letter. Provenance summary. I have the previous documentation. Email me, he said. I'll draft and have it ready by end of day. Bring the piece if you want a fresh look. How are you holding up? I'm fine, I lied, and we both let it pass. When I hung up, Anita slid in with a stack of packing slips and a face that said she hadn't slept either. 2 things, she said, wagging the papers. First, UPS claims the truck attempted delivery at 7:05 a.m., which is adorable because we've been here since 6:30 and my coffee is still warm. I bullied a human into redirecting. Second, I found an ACH for $8,750 coded as shipping to a black car service. Month end. Car service? Maya said. Correct, Anita said, tapping the paper. Multiple runs. Could be client pickups. Could be, not. Pull the receipts, I said. Flag anything without a manifest or a buyer name. And screenshot everything before anyone edits a field. Anita's mouth curled in satisfaction. Already backed up. I also exported last quarter's Slack, in case someone decides to get precious about channels. Bless you, I said. My laptop chimed, a calendar reminder for a call I'd been dreading with a wholesaler in Tokyo who liked punctuality like a religion. I typed a quick apology, moved it by 45 minutes, and then opened a new email. Subject, Notice of Termination, Contractor Agreement. My fingers hovered. Not because I doubted, but because words have weight and I needed this document to land with all of it. Ethan. Effective immediately, your contractor agreement dated May 14th is terminated for cause pursuant to Sections 8(b) and 9(c) breach of non-disclosure, unauthorized use of confidential information, and solicitation of clients in violation of the non-solicit. You are directed to cease all representation of the brand, return all company property, including but not limited to rate sheets, media assets, logins, and refrain from contacting vendors, buyers, or staff. A cease and desist is attached. A courier will collect any physical materials today. I attached screenshots, the accidental email he'd forwarded to himself with wholesale pricing, the message where he told a junior to copy the sheet, change the header. Anita slipped me a thumb drive like we were in a spy movie. Evidence glittered where jewelry usually did. Do I CC his lawyer? I asked the heir. Maya raised a brow. Do we know which one he's claiming this week? Not yet, I said, and BCC'd my attorney instead. Before I hit send, my phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number and the kind of confidence only unknown numbers have. Let's be civil. Don't do anything you'll regret. We both know the brand is half mine. I looked out across my studio, every bench we'd bought secondhand, every tray, every roll of butcher paper I'd fed through the cutter like meat through a grinder to get packaging out on time. Half mine. I typed back, return what you took. Then we can discuss civility. I didn't send it. I deleted the draft. I breathed in lemon cleaner and solder and that faint iron scent you only notice when you're about to cry and refuse to. I hit send on the termination. A second later, message delivered. 3 dots appeared. Then vanished. Then appeared again, like a heartbeat trying to decide if it wanted to keep going. Boss? Leo again, softer this time. You want to check the prongs on the ass share? One's got a micro snag. I can fix it, but it's yours. I swallowed. Yes. Thank you. I walked the ring over. The polishing room was its own weather, warm from the lamps, air tasting of rouge and cloth. Leo held the ring under a loupe and murmured like a jeweler in prayer. It wants to be seen, he said, then caught himself. Sorry. Weird thing to say. No, I said. It's perfect. He tightened the tiniest thing I've ever watched a person tighten. The stone settled into its seat like it had been holding itself stiff for too long. Back in the main room, Maya was on speaker with a buyer in Dallas, her voice a metronome of reassurance. We're confirming ship Friday. Insured. Yes, documentation included. Absolutely. Thank you, no, thank you. She hung up and pumped her fist. Then her face shifted. He's outside, she mouthed. I turned. Through the frosted glass of the stairwell door, a shape moved, broad shoulders, the tilt of a head I knew the way you know your own handwriting. He was speaking to someone out of sight, gesturing like a man telling a fish story. Don't open it, I said. I wasn't going to, Maya said. But he's loud. And we have appointments. The silhouette leaned toward the glass. His breath fogged a small oval. He knocked. A polite knock. The kind that makes you feel unreasonable for not answering. Call the building manager, I said. And take a photo. Timestamp. My phone pinged again. DM from the gossip account. Care to comment on your husband's move? We're running a piece at noon. Also, is it true your ring is fake? A winky face. The world always wants to turn a fire into a show. I typed, no comment. I attached a cropped photo of the hallmark, just the stamp, no metal, no stone, so only someone who knew would know. I didn't send that either. I saved it in drafts like a talisman. He knocked again. Louder this time. Leo turned up the radio in the polishing room so the torch hiss covered the sound. The building manager texted a thumbs up and the words on my way like a lifeguard coming with a whistle. Courier will be here at 10, Anita said, sliding an envelope toward me. If he tries to hand over anything, we catalog it. If he tries to take anything, we don't let him pass the line. I nodded. My hands were steady now. It scared me a little, the steadiness, like a calm that comes before a wave you can't see. I opened a new tab and filled out a form I never wanted to learn by heart, process service request. Name, address, time, place. I typed the courthouse location out of muscle memory I didn't know I had. I uploaded the termination letter and the cease and desist and clicked schedule. The freight elevator clanked. Footsteps. Keys. The door stayed shut. Maya touched my elbow. You sure you don't want to? I don't know, take a walk around the block? I want to stand here, I said. And make sure my locks hold. Her mouth tilted. Okay. The courier arrived with a scuffed Pelican case and a clipboard. He looked at the silhouette behind the glass and didn't ask questions. Professional courtesy. I signed. He left. The silhouette finally retreated. The fogged oval faded. My email chimed. Subject, received. No text in the body, just the read receipt from his inbox, that tiny digital shrug, I saw what you sent. A separate alert followed, an automated system message from our shared project board I thought I'd locked down. Ethan removed himself from partnerships. Then, seconds later, Ethan added new task, meet with, competitor name, Thursday. Of course, I said out loud to no one. Of course Thursday. Maya looked at me. We'll be ready. The appraiser's reply landed on top of it like a clean sheet on a messy bed, provenance letter drafted. Swing by at 4 if you want the physical copy for court. I stared at the ring on the cloth, bright now, awake, its steps throwing back the overhead light like a ladder. I slipped it into my pocket again and felt its weight settle where it could anchor me. Outside, a siren Dopplered east. Inside, the ultrasonic hummed for another batch, the sound of small, invisible work. I opened my calendar and circled Thursday. Then my phone vibrated with a new subject line that made my mouth go dry, notice of preliminary conference, Queen Supreme. We can get a judge today, if you're ready to swear. That was the first thing Attorney Park said as the conference room door clicked shut behind me. The room smelled like lemon polish and printer heat. Outside the glass, Midtown moved like a metronome, heels on marble, elevators dinging, voices caught and released by the air vents. Park set a yellow legal pad between us and uncapped a pen with the kind of care that made my ribs loosen. He was small, neat, gray at the temples, the kind of person who made chaos stand in a line. I'm ready, I said, but my voice was too soft, like it had traveled from another room to meet us here. He slid a glass of water toward me. Then we start with a sworn timeline. Dates, amounts, messages. Keep adjectives out. He smiled without humor. Judges are allergic to adjectives. I pulled the folder from my bag. Paper brushed paper, the sound made every hair on my arms lift. He took the first statement and read while I watched his face for flickers, surprise, contempt, anything. Nothing. Just a small nod. This is good, he said. Clean. You did the bank's job for them. We'll attach your affidavit and ask for temporary restraints on transfers. I'll also request an order limiting contact with your staff and clients. He's been visible, I said, picking the least charged word I could find. Visible is useful, Park said. Visible can be documented. He tapped the phone I'd put face down on the table. Any messages since last night? I turned it over. Notifications stacked like a deck of cards. I scrolled. Unknown number, 2 a.m., we both know I built this too. 10 minutes later, don't make me show receipts. Then a DM asking if my ring is, I swallowed. If it's fake. Park's eyebrow rose a millimeter. We are not litigating jewelry. We are litigating conduct. I reached into my pocket, felt the ring's cool curve, and set it on the legal pad. Under the ceiling lights the stone woke up, every step facet answering with its own careful light. Park didn't touch it. If opposing counsel goes low, we go boring. Provenance can support credibility, but it is not the story. The story is signatures and money. The HVAC kicked on, the vent above us exhaled. I watched the ring until the fear shrank enough to let air back in. I need my business left alone, I said. I need my people paid. Then we ask for what keeps you operational, he said. Interim orders. No account access. No client contact. If he thinks he's half owner, he's wrong, your paperwork is clean. He wrapped the pad with his pen. We also flagged dissipation, the transfers to his sister. Judges like words that point to case law. A knock at the glass, Anita, holding up her phone from the hallway. I excused myself and cracked the door. Update, she whispered. Vendor confirmed a rate sheet got forwarded from our system to a Gmail with his initials. I've got the header info. And the building manager filed an incident report about him showing up. Send it all, I said. Timestamps, names, everything. Back at the table, Park had already typed a case caption at the top of his laptop. He gestured at the chair. We're going to move fast. I'll draft the order to show cause. You'll review for accuracy. We'll walk it to the part. If the calendar cooperates, we can get something today. What if the calendar doesn't cooperate? I asked. Then we get tomorrow, he said, dry. Courts run on coffee and delay. We plan for both. We wrote. He asked for time, I gave it. He asked for amounts, I pointed. At one point he asked me to read a text out loud so he could copy the cadence. My throat tightened around the words and then loosened after the third line. When I finished, he was already pasting a screenshot into the draft. The door opened just enough for Maya to slip in. She smelled like wind and metal from the studio. Sorry, she said. I'm not staying. I just wanted to tell you I moved passwords, shut down his access to the project boards, and issued fresh NDAs to the contractors. Dallas confirmed their wire is ready upon ship. They asked for reassurance there won't be drama. There will be orders, Park said without looking up. Tell them that. Maya's mouth twitched. Yes, sir. To me, softer, breathe. After she left, Park said, how many employees? 18, I said, and the number felt both small and heavy, 18 heads, 18 rents, 18 stories of how we got here. We'll say 19, he said, typing. You count too. My phone buzzed again. Mama. I silenced it and then winced. I should. Take it, Park said. I need 5 minutes to call the clerk anyway. I stepped into the hall. The carpet had that hotel blue pattern that hides stains. Ma? Eat, she said, which told me she'd been pacing. I could hear the kitchen behind her, the soft click of the stove, the rattle of the lid as steam tried to escape. I made you a plate. You didn't take it. I'll come after, I said. You'll come here and sleep, she said. Don't argue. I have to file today. She was quiet for a beat. Do what you need to do. Just don't let him make you small. I won't, I said, though some part of me wanted to say I already had, once, and was learning to unfold again. Back inside, Park was hanging up. We have a preliminary conference date, he said. He spun the laptop so I could see the calendar invite. Next Wednesday. My mouth did the math without me. That's 5 business days. Plenty of time to do a week's worth of work, he said, faintly amused. Between now and then we formalize the discovery demands. I'll include a directive to preserve devices and accounts. We'll put him on notice that third-party subpoenas, car service email providers, are coming. Do we warn him about the termination letter? We don't warn, Park said. We serve. He printed the packet, fed it into a manila folder like bread into a toaster, sealed it with the flat of his hand. Read your affidavit. If a comma feels like a lie, tell me. I read it. The words were plain, dates, transfers, a text where he wrote copy the sheet. No adjectives. My name at the bottom. A signature line that waited for a pen I recognized. My hands didn't shake. I signed. Park checked it and slid it into the folder. Good. Now let's talk safety. He showed up at your workplace? Yes, I said. He knocked like a neighbor asking for flour. We'll include a residential and business stay away, he said. Courts like specifics, feet, hours, addresses. He'll say I'm punishing him, I said. He can say the moon is made of velvet, Park said. We anchor to facts. A junior associate stuck her head in. I called the part. If you bring it up now, the judge can review between motions. Park stood, smoothing his tie. We walk. The hallway air was colder than the room, and the sudden temperature change made my eyes water. We took the elevator with a man carrying a stack of bluebacks and a woman without a coat who stared at her phone like it was a raft. On the street, the wind smelled like exhaust and rain waiting for permission. We cut east. I matched Park's stride because it felt like a promise. At security, we emptied our pockets. The ring clicked into the gray tray. I felt naked for the length of the belt and then whole when it was back in my palm. Park nodded to a court officer like they'd made a habit of knowing each other's faces. In the clerk's office, everything was beige and humming, copiers, ancient computers, a clock that insisted time was square. Park handed over the packet. The clerk stamped it with a sound that felt ceremonial, thunk, thunk. Another stamp for the proposed order. Park's voice was easy when he asked about the judge's schedule, like this was social and not surgical. We waited on a bench that had bitten 100 pairs of anxious legs. I watched a couple fight in whispers, I watched a man sleep with his mouth open, I watched a woman smooth her skirt and cry without moving anything but her eyes. Here, Park said, holding out a pen. You're going to want it in your hand when the judge calls our case. It helps. What does it help? Everything, he said. A court officer called our file number. Inside the part, the fluorescent lights made everyone a shade paler. The judge looked over half-moon glasses at the caption, then at me, then at Park. Counsel? Good morning, Your Honor, Park said, and the room stilled a little around his voice. He laid out the facts the way he told me he would, clean and almost boring, and I loved him for it. The judge asked questions about dates and amounts and whether my business would be harmed before the conference. Park pointed to exhibits, the judge read fast, paper whispered. Interim restraints are granted, the judge said finally, signing with brisk strokes. No transfers. No contact with staff or clients. Stay away from place of business. Preserve devices. Return any property. We'll sort the rest at the PC. I let air leave my lungs like I'd been holding a note too long. Park didn't smile. He nodded once, folded the order, and guided me out. In the hallway, I called Maya. We have an order, I said. He can't touch us, not today. She exhaled into the phone. Okay. Okay. I'll brief the team. And listen. She dropped her voice. The expo confirmed his badge for Thursday. He'll be across the aisle from us. I stopped walking. People flowed around me, briefcases brushing my coat. Across the aisle. Do you want to pull out? She asked. I pressed the ring into my palm until the edges printed my skin. Outside the window, the city was a chessboard I pretended I knew how to play. No, I said. We show up. Park checked his watch. You've got time for a sandwich before your next thing. What's my next thing? I asked, and even as I said it, my phone buzzed. An email from the court. Subject line, preliminary conference, confirmed. Another signal chimed over it, my calendar, bright and relentless. A third alert landed on top of both, media request, then a fourth, from a blocked number, a single line that made my mouth go dry. See you under the lights. The lights at Javits were so bright they felt like weather, hard, white noon that never moved, and the first thing I heard was the slap of his laugh bouncing off glass. He was already performing when I stepped onto the aisle, one hand on a display case, the other carving the air like he was conducting. A circle of buyers watched the show. He tipped his chin at my hand and said, just loud enough, she still wears that cheap ring. My mouth tasted like pennies. I put my tote behind our booth table and checked the cases, clasps locked, inventory lined up in rows that made sense only if you'd packed them yourself at midnight. Maya gave me a quick once-over. You look like Law, she said, black blazer, hair pinned so tight it lifted my eyes. Breathe. I am, I said, and made my breath a square, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Across the aisle, Ethan slicked a palm over his hair and leaned toward two women from Dallas in matching boots. She's got a good heart, he confided, like he was letting them in on a secret. Just not much taste. One of the buyers looked at me, then at the ring, low set, plain, not the kind that photographs well. I let the silence between us do the work and arranged a tray of hammered bands under the LED strip. Metal flashed like small coins in a fountain. The carpet smelled faintly of cleaner and stale coffee. A forklift beeped somewhere in the back. Morning, I said, and my voice came out steady. We've got the new Ash cuts in platinum. We're doing net 30 on orders placed today. Insured shipping, Jewelers Mutual. Is there going to be drama? The taller Dallas buyer asked, while her partner pretended to study the tags. There will be paperwork, I said. And orders delivered on time. The taller one's mouth twitched, approval flickering like a pilot light. She reached for a loop. May I? Of course. She bent to the tray and breathed a small sound I knew by heart, the sound a stone makes when it earns its keep. Across the aisle, Ethan's grin tightened. I didn't look back. The floor manager stopped by with a clipboard and a smile that had been stapled to her face since dawn. Everyone good? Electricity okay? Remember, badges visible outside the booth. We're good, Maya said. Thanks. The blogger appeared like a rumor with legs, camera strapped to her chest, lipstick too perfect for this light. We're doing a quick hit on brand evolutions, she chirped. 15 seconds. You want to comment on your... No thank you, I said pleasantly. We let our work speak. You can shoot the cases. She pouted and pivoted to Ethan, who was born for 15 seconds. We're moving on to big things, he told her, eyes flicking to me. Sometimes you outgrow people. Maya wrote something on a post-it so hard the pen nearly tore it. She slid it to me with one finger. Process server on site, aisle J, black suit. I looked up and saw him at the end of the row, carrying a manila envelope like a sacrament. Be right back, I told Maya, and stepped into the aisle at the exact moment Ethan did, so we met under a light that made both of us look more tired than either of us would admit. Counselor says hi, he murmured. His tone was bright. His eyes were glass. Mine will say it in writing, I said. The process server walked straight between us. Ethan Morales? He asked, polite as a maitre d'. Ethan blinked. Who's asking? Service, the man said, and held out the envelope. Order to show cause, termination letter, and a notice regarding temporary restraints. Ethan didn't take it. The server let it touch his chest, then let it go. It slid against his suit like a postcard, then hit the carpet. You can't do that here, Ethan said, flush rising under the LED sun. You can't. It's done, the server said, and walked away. The blogger's camera caught everything. She tried to pretend she hadn't, pointing her lens at a tray of dull studs. Maya stepped into the frame and smiled like a wall. We don't do drama, she said to the lens. We do delivery. The Dallas buyers glanced at each other, making that tiny face women make when they're deciding whether to trust you. I rolled the ring between finger and thumb in my pocket until the cold reached the bone. Let me show you the setting on this ass share, I said, and lifted the ring onto a white pad. The stone woke like an animal under the light, step facets throwing off careful ladders of light. I didn't say the number. I didn't say the story. I let the workmanship argue for me. The taller buyer nodded slowly. Net 30? Yes. And we'll overnight the first batch if you need the window. She glanced across the aisle at Ethan, who was crouched, scooping the envelope from the carpet as if he were just picking up a dropped napkin. We're good, she said to me. Let's write it. We did. The pen scratched loud in the booth's little air. I wrote numbers like small prayers and initialed each line like an oath. When we finished, she squeezed my hand. Good luck tomorrow, she said softly, and I didn't ask how she knew. The floor finds out everything before you do. Ethan drifted back toward his booth, the envelope now a prop. This is petty, he announced to no one in particular. I'm the brand's face. You don't cancel the face. Faces change, Maya said without looking up. He leaned on the case again. You think a judge will save you? I think facts will, I said. He smiled the old smile, the one that used to make me say yes to things I should have said no to. Facts, he said, as if it were a punchline. Like the fact that ring is. I lifted my eyes and he stopped. The look I gave him must have had teeth, because he's always respected teeth, even when he thought he owned them. The blogger tried again. One quote, she begged. Just a line. I obliged her without looking at the camera. Worth isn't loud, I said. It's steady. She blinked, and for a second put the camera down like something had made her remember herself. A man from Tokyo came by right as a forklift beeped mournfully down the far aisle and the PA announced a missing backpack, please no unattended bags. He bowed, I bowed, and we negotiated in the soft math of people who want a deal and a reason to like you. We settled on quantities that would keep Leo up late but not ruin his hands, and when he left with his copy, Maya sagged against the wall and whispered, 280 closed. Another one pending. The floor manager passed again. Folks, remember, no soliciting from outside your booth. The warning was pointed at Ethan, who had taken to leaning out into the aisle like a street vendor. He straightened and blew out a breath he wanted me to hear. I'll be fine, he said. You can't freeze all my accounts. I don't need to, I said. Just the ones you touch. He laughed, and it curdled at the edges. You always did like control. I like order, I said. Control is just what people call it when they don't want to wash their hands. He blinked. What? Nothing, I said, and turned to a woman with a clipboard who had been hovering like a moth. She was from a small boutique upstate, her fingers smelled like hand lotion and coins. She wanted 5 of the hammered bands and 1 ass share. She wanted to believe I would still be here when her truck came next week. I promised I would be and felt the promise as a thread pulling me forward. Around noon, the gossip post went up. Maya saw it first and hissed. A split screen, Ethan mid-gesture, me behind my case, the caption a sugar-coated knife, he says he made it. She says papers will prove otherwise. Under the expo lights, who's telling the truth? The comments bloomed like mold. I didn't read them. Instead, I opened the draft on my phone and attached a single photo, a tight crop of an old Hallmark, initials, a date carved so fine you had to know where to look. I didn't send it. I wanted to, God, I wanted to. But I imagined Park's face and closed the window. The Dallas buyers came back with coffee and a list. Add 10 more, the tall one said. And throw in the studs. Thank you, I said, and realized my hands had stopped shaking. The steadiness felt like stepping onto solid ground after a ferry. Security, the floor manager said into her radio, voice dropping. I looked over and saw Ethan in a heated whisper with a guard, his hands carving arguments out of air. The guard shook his head, made a note on a pad, moved on. Ethan saw me watching and smiled like a dare. I checked my watch. The appraiser was expecting me at 4 with a letter I wanted to hold the way you hold a passport in a borderline. I packed the samples we didn't need for the afternoon and pressed the cool ring into its slot in the tray. It looked like any other piece until it didn't. Lunch? Maya said, handing me a plastic container with something that had once been a salad and was now a story about hope. Later, I said. The PA announced that the expo would close at 6, alarms would sound at 6:15, all cases must be covered. My phone buzzed, a new email from the court, the subject line short enough to fit in the preview, interim order entered. Park's message followed on top of it, print 3 copies. Carry 1. Then, almost as an afterthought, another from an unknown address, no subject, no body, just an attachment named receipts.pdf. I stared at it until the edges of my vision fuzzed. I didn't open it. Not yet. The lights were still too bright, and the floor still too loud, and the orders still needed my hands. Across the aisle, Ethan lifted his chin and mouthed, "See you tomorrow," I said under my breath, to him or myself or the ring in my pocket, I couldn't tell. The file sat in my inbox like a closed door with breathing behind it. "Show us the ring," his lawyer said, like she was asking me to juggle. The courtroom air tasted like pine sol and coffee that had forgotten it used to be hot. Fluorescence pressed down on everyone, making skin sallow and pages bright. I could feel the benches creak under the weight of people trying not to move. My mother's rosary clicked a slow, invisible metronome 2 rows back. My father cleared his throat once and then obeyed the sign that said no talking. Ethan sat at counsel table with his shoulders back, a performance even while seated. He smiled like a man who'd found the camera. Attorney Park didn't look at the lawyer. He looked at me. "You brought the appraisal and the letter?" "In my bag," I whispered. My tongue stuck to my teeth. I could taste pennies again. "Not yet," he murmured, as the judge lifted a hand. "We're not litigating jewelry," the judge said, glasses low, voice even. "We're litigating conduct. Keep us there." Ethan's lawyer smiled like a knife. "Of course, Your Honor. But since credibility is at issue, then we'll address credibility with dates and signatures," the judge said. "Proceed." Park stood. He didn't clear his throat. He didn't puff. He laid out the skeleton we'd built in a conference room that smelled like lemon polish, transfers, amounts, times. He slid exhibits into the stream without drama, and each time paper whispered across what I felt the knot in my chest loosen a notch. He handed up the incident report from the building manager. The screenshot of the copy the sheet message. The termination letter. The interim order I'd printed 3 times because Park had said to carry 1 and I obey orders when they're good for me. He didn't raise his voice. He let the facts do the standing. Ethan's lawyer leaned toward her mic. "He had permission," she said. "They're married. She benefited. And she's not as financially constrained as she suggests." A pause, calculated. She cultivates a certain image. Humble. Modest. But behind that. Park didn't let her finish the sentence. Objection to the theater, he said. We're not trying a brand. Overruled, the judge said, but waved 2 fingers. Keep it tight, counsel. Ethan's lawyer pivoted. We'd like to enter, for credibility, screenshots of public posts where she represents herself as the heart of this brand. We intend to show my client's contributions have been minimized. Minimized? Park repeated, as if tasting the word. He didn't look at me. Let's make contributions concrete then. Invoices submitted. Payments made. The contractor agreement he signed. He flipped to the page with the non-solicit and let silence make the letters loud. He agreed not to use confidential information to solicit clients. And then he did. Here. He slid the header from Gmail exhibit forward. The judge read. The fluorescent buzz filled the space where my breath should have gone. Ethan watched me instead of the judge. He had always preferred my reaction to the truth. Ms. Morales, the judge said, turning to me, stand, please. I did. The wood under my palm at the witness rail was warm from 100 similar hands. Park asked questions as if we'd never rehearsed them. He didn't lead me. He let me walk. My voice sounded borrowed on the first answer and then came back. What did you do when you discovered transfers? He asked. Called the bank. Froze the card. Changed credentials. Hired counsel, I said, each verb a bead on a string. What is the status of your business today? We're operating. We shipped orders this morning, I said, and couldn't help the small lift at the end, the proud one I tried to hide. Anytime my throat tightened, I found the ring with my fingers where it sat in my blazer pocket. I didn't put it on. I let the cold steady me through fabric. Ethan's lawyer cross-examined with a smirk she couldn't help. You say you didn't authorize the transfers. Did you ever tell him to do what's necessary for the business? I told him to ask, I said. Isn't it true you benefited from his relationships with buyers? I benefited when orders were filled, I said. By anyone. Her smile sharpened. And isn't it true that you present yourself as a person of modest means when in fact you possess a ring of significant value? Park stood. Objection. Relevance. Credibility, she sang. The judge leaned back. Answer briefly. I breathed once through my nose. The ring has value, I said. That doesn't make theft okay. A ripple in the gallery, the court officer lifted his chin and the benches quieted like animals who know the handler. Park waited a beat. Your Honor, he said softly, may I approach with 2 exhibits? A letter from a licensed appraiser and a provenance summary. They go only to rebut the implication that my client misrepresents who she is. Approach, the judge said. Park carried the papers up. I watched the judge's eyes track the lines. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. He initialed the corner. Not much to do with today's orders, he said, but noted. Ethan's lawyer rolled a pen between her fingers. We'd like to enter an email marked receipts.pdf as Defendants A, she said. It demonstrates that my client is, in fact, the architect of key partnerships. Park's eyebrow ticked, the only time I saw it move. We'll review the metadata, he said. But an email he titled Receipts is not evidence of ownership. The judge flipped the interim order face up, picked up a pen that had worn a groove into this job, and wrote. Interim restraints are continued, he said, voice flat and clean. No contact with staff or clients, no access to business systems, preservation of devices. He pointed at Ethan's lawyer with the pen, tell your client that do not contact means what it says. He understands, she lied. Dissipation claims will be addressed at the conference, the judge added. Return of property to be completed by Friday at noon. If there's anything else in dispute, you'll meet and confer like professionals and you'll do it outside my part. He lifted his eyes. They found me, then Ethan. Keep your voices down. Keep your hands to yourselves. Next matter at 10:30. The gavel didn't drop, it never does in the parts you expect. The officer said, all rise, and we did, awkward, like a chorus that had forgotten the steps. In the hallway, lawyers became loud again and heels clicked and someone laughed a hair too hard. Park handed me a copy of the order. The paper felt heavier than paper. This keeps you breathing, he said, and then, lightening it with a joke he'd used before, judges are allergic to adjectives. You did well. My mother touched my sleeve, eyes wet. We go home, she said. Eat. Not yet, I said. I have to drop by the appraiser. Ethan waited near the elevators like cheap cologne. He held his phone up. We're not done, he said softly, and for the first time all day he sounded like a person and not a billboard. They'll know. Who? I asked. Everyone, he said, as if that were a god we both fed. Park stepped between us like a pocket knife. Sir, the order, he murmured, tapping the page. Stay away means stay away. Ethan's smile was thin. Under the lights, he said, and got into the car going down. We walked out onto Queens Boulevard. The air tasted like bus brakes in winter. Park hailed a cab with 2 fingers, old-fashioned and effective. You capable of not reading the comments? He asked as the driver pulled up. I'm capable of pretending, I said. Pretend hard, he said, and slid into the back seat. Call me if receipts.pdf turns out to be something we need to kill with a hammer. I watched the cab's taillights disappear into the traffic, then took the subway because I needed the noise. The train smelled like wet wool and coins. I stood with my feet apart, shoulder pressed to a pole worn smooth by decades of other hands. An older woman glanced at my pocket where my hand clenched, then at my face. She offered a single piece of gum like a benediction. I took it. The sweetness was ridiculous and perfect. At the appraiser's, the bell over the door chimed like a polite throat clearing. The room was all wood and glass and the faint, clean smell of gloves. He had the letter ready, signed in blue ink, a little flourish at the end like he couldn't help himself. It's a beautiful piece, he said again, as if he had to remind me. You know that. I do, I said, and felt the truth of it all the way to my teeth. When I stepped back onto the sidewalk, the sky had the blue of a bruise healing. I slipped the ring on. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because I wanted to feel its weight where it belonged. Cool first, then warm. My phone buzzed in my hand. A new email slid into the top of the stack. No subject. No body. Just a single line in the preview from an address I didn't recognize. Look closer at page 4.